Overseer Kralvesh stood at the observation window of his ship and looked down at the small human colony below. The buildings were simple and gray. Nothing impressive. Nothing that would make anyone stop and stare. He had seen 1,000 worlds more beautiful than this one. The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for 50,000 years. 847 different species lived under its protection. Some were ancient and wise. Others were strong warriors. A few were masters of technology that could bend reality itself. And then there were the humans. Humans had joined the Empire only 40 years ago. They were young, primitive. Their ships still used chemical fuel, like children playing with fireworks. They had no plasma weapons, no quantum shields, no technology that mattered. The Empire had accepted them only because their home planet sat near a useful trade route. Nothing more. Kralvesh adjusted his uniform and walked toward the meeting room. His scales caught the light as he moved. He had been an Imperial overseer for 200 years. He had seen species rise and fall. Humans would be no different. They would stay small and quiet, grateful for whatever scraps the Empire threw their way. The human ambassador was already waiting in the meeting room. Her name was Jinso Park. She was small, like most humans, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to notice everything. She stood when Kralvesh entered and bowed slightly. "Overseer Kralvesh, thank you for meeting with me," she said. Her voice was calm and polite. Kralvesh did not return the bow. He sat in his chair and gestured for her to sit. "You requested this meeting. Ambassador, what do you want?" Jinseo smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. "My government would like to request increased trade access with the core worlds. We also hope to participate in the technology sharing program. We believe we could learn much from the Empire's wisdom." Kralvesh almost laughed. Every primitive species asked for the same things: technology, access, respect. They all thought they deserved more than they had earned. "Ambassador Park, your species has been part of the Empire for only 40 years. That is barely a moment in galactic time. The technology sharing program is for proven species. Species that have contributed something of value." He leaned forward. "What has humanity contributed? You have no advanced weapons. Your science is centuries behind ours. Your ships are slow and clumsy. Why should the Empire invest in you?" Jinseo's smile did not change. "We understand your position, Overseer. But we are working hard to prove ourselves. Given time and resources, we believe we can contribute greatly to the Empire. Time is something you have plenty of," Kralvesh said. He stood, making it clear the meeting was over. "The Empire will evaluate your species again in 50 years. Until then, be satisfied with what you have. Many species would be grateful for your position." Jinseo stood as well. She bowed again. "Thank you for your time, Overseer. I hope our next meeting will be more productive." Kralvesh left without another word. As he walked back to his ship, he reviewed the reports his staff had prepared. Human population: stable. Industrial output: minimal. Military threat: 0. Everything was as expected. Then something caught his eye in the trade records. Humans were shipping massive amounts of raw materials to a single location: steel, rare metals, processed minerals. The quantities were enormous. For a species with such a small industrial base, it seemed impossible. He called his assistant. "What is this? Where are all these materials going?" "Clown." The assistant checked his datapad. "It appears to be going to a remote system on the edge of human territory. The location is listed as Project Sanctuary." "Project Sanctuary? What is that?" "I don't know, sir. The humans have not provided details. They list it only as a construction project." Kralvesh frowned. "A construction project? Humans could barely build proper space stations. What could they possibly be constructing that required so much material?" He almost ordered an investigation. Then, he stopped himself. Whatever the humans were building, it would probably fail anyway. They would waste their resources on some foolish dream, and in 50 years they would still be the same primitive species they were now. The Empire had seen it happen countless times before. He dismissed the thought and returned to his ship. As they prepared to leave the system, Kralvesh sat down to write his official report. Humanity remains a probationary species with minimal value to imperial interests, he typed. No signs of technological advancement. No military concerns. No changes to current policy recommended. With calm, he sent the report and leaned back in his chair. In a few days he would be back at the imperial capital, attending meetings with species that actually mattered. He would forget about the humans completely. Outside his window, a human cargo ship passed by, heading toward the outer rim of their territory. Its hull was painted with words in human language. Project, Sanctuary, Construction, Fleet. Kralvesh did not look up. He did not see it pass. He had already moved on to other matters. More important matters. The humans and their little construction project were not worth another thought. Behind him, on his data screen, the trade records continued to update. More materials, more ships, all heading to the same remote system. Week after week, month after month. But Kralvesh was already gone. And the reports went unread. 3 years had passed since Overseer Kralvesh had dismissed the humans as irrelevant. 3 years. And now something was wrong. Very wrong. Captain Thexara read the reports again, her 4 eyes scanning each line carefully. She was a veteran scout commander, experienced in dealing with mysteries at the edge of Imperial space. But this was different. This was impossible. 7 ships had reported strange energy readings near human territory. Readings that should not exist. The signatures were powerful, far beyond anything a species like humanity should be able to produce. At first, everyone assumed the instruments were broken. Space was full of natural phenomena that could confuse sensors, but 7 different ships with 7 different sensor types all reported the same thing. That was no coincidence. Imperial Command had called Thexara into service. Her mission was simple: find out what the humans were doing, and confirm they were not breaking Imperial law. The Technology Restriction Act was clear. Primitive species could not develop weapons of mass destruction. If humans were building something dangerous, the Empire would stop them. Thexara's ship was small and quiet, designed to avoid detection. It moved through space like a shadow, invisible to most sensors. She had used it to spy on pirates, smugglers, and rebel groups. It had never failed her. She approached the coordinates slowly. The system was unremarkable. A dying star, too old and weak to support life. A few dead planets orbiting in the darkness. Nothing valuable. Nothing worth anyone's attention. Then she saw it. By the ancient stars, she whispered. The structure hung in space like a metal moon. It was huge, maybe 20 kilometers across. Strange patterns covered its surface, geometric shapes that seemed to shift when she looked at them. Thousands of construction ships swarmed around it like insects, still building, still adding pieces. Thexara had seen many things in her long career. She had seen Dyson spheres built by species 1,000,000 years old. She had seen quantum engines that could tear holes in space. She had seen weapons that could crack planets in half, but she had never seen anything like this. Her instruments screamed warnings. Energy levels were off the charts. The readings made no sense. The structure was drawing power from the dying star, but not in any way her sensors recognized. It was as if the humans had found a completely new way to harness stellar energy. She tried to run a detailed scan. Immediately, every system on her ship went haywire. Alarms blared. Her navigation computer crashed. The lights flickered. Thexara cursed and shut down the scanning equipment. Slowly, her ship systems came back online. Whatever that structure was, It did not like being examined too closely. Before she could retreat, her communication system activated. A human voice spoke in perfect Imperial Standard language. Unknown vessel. You have entered a restricted construction zone. Please identify yourself. Thexara considered lying. Then she realized they had probably already scanned her ship. This is Captain Thexara of the Imperial Scout Service. I am conducting a routine survey. There was a pause. Then a human patrol ship appeared from behind one of the dead planets. It was small and looked almost primitive compared to Imperial vessels, but it positioned itself between Thexara and the massive structure. Captain Thexara, Project Sanctuary, is not yet complete. For safety reasons, we must ask you to leave the area. We will escort you to the system boundary. What is Project Sanctuary? Thexara asked. What are you building? All information will be provided when the project is complete. Please follow our escort. The human ship moved forward slowly. Thexara could have destroyed it easily. Her weapons were far superior. But that was not the mission. She needed information, not a fight. She followed the human escort out of the system. As she left, she took one last look at the massive structure. It sat there in the darkness, mysterious and terrible, drawing power from a dying star. 10 days later, Thexara stood before the Imperial Military Command. 20 high-ranking officers sat around a curved table, their faces showing various expressions of concern, disbelief, and anger. Are you certain of what you saw? Grand Admiral Vex Thor asked. He was old, even by galactic standards, and had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. Yes, Admiral. The structure is approximately 20 kilometers in diameter. It is drawing stellar energy through means unknown to Imperial science. My instruments could not complete a full analysis. One of the other officers spoke up. Impossible. Humans do not have that technology. They barely have fusion power. I know what I saw, Thexara said firmly. The structure exists. It is real. Another officer laughed. It is probably just a large space station. Humans trying to impress us with size. I bet it will collapse from poor engineering within a year. But Vex Thor did not laugh. He had not survived 3 centuries by dismissing potential threats. What is your assessment, Captain? Thexara chose her words carefully. I believe the humans have developed something new. Something we do not understand. Whether it is dangerous or not, I cannot say. But we should take it seriously. The room erupted in debate. Some officers agreed with Thexara. Others thought she was overreacting. A few suggested immediate military action. The argument went on for hours. Finally, Vex Thor raised his hand for silence. We will send an official delegation to demand answers. If the humans refuse to explain, we will consider other options. The message was sent through official channels. Ambassador Park's response came quickly. It was brief and polite. Project Sanctuary represents humanity's contribution to galactic science. We will be happy to provide a full demonstration when construction is complete. 6 more months. We appreciate the Empire's patience. 6 months. It seemed like a reasonable time. But as Thexara left the meeting, she felt a cold weight in her chest. Whatever the humans were building, it had changed something fundamental. The galaxy would not be the same after those 6 months passed. She had seen the fear in the other officers' eyes, even the ones who pretended not to care. They all felt it. Something was coming. Something they did not understand and could not control. And humanity, the species everyone had dismissed as primitive and harmless, held all the answers. 6 months felt like 6 years. The waiting was terrible. When the invitation finally arrived, it caused chaos throughout the Empire. Every government wanted to send representatives. Every military branch demanded to be included. Scientists fought for spots on the observation ships. Everyone wanted to see what humanity had built. The Imperial fleet that arrived at Project Sanctuary was massive. 200 ships of various sizes and purposes. diplomatic vessels carrying ambassadors from 50 different species, military cruisers with enough firepower to destroy a small planet, science ships packed with the best instruments the Empire could provide. Grand Admiral Vex Thor commanded the fleet personally. Captain Thex Ara was there too, in her scout ship, and Overseer Kralvesh, who had been promoted after his years of service, now served as the Imperial Council's official observer. Kralvesh stared out at the structure and felt his blood run cold. It was finished now. The construction ships were gone. What remained was something that should not exist. The structure was perfect. Every surface gleamed. The geometric patterns that covered it seemed to pulse with inner light, and the energy readings were beyond anything he had ever seen. His instruments showed numbers that made no sense. Power levels that should have torn the structure apart. A human ship approached the flagship. Ambassador Jin Seo Park's voice came through the communication system. Warm and welcoming. Grand Admiral, honored guests, welcome to Project Sanctuary. We are ready to show you what we have accomplished. Please follow our guide ship to the observation platform. The fleet moved forward slowly. Everyone was nervous. Even the most confident officers kept their hands near the weapon controls. But the humans made no threatening moves. They simply guided the Imperial ships to a safe viewing distance. The observation platform was a small station the humans had built specifically for this demonstration. It could hold several hundred guests. As the various species gathered inside, they talked in hushed voices. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador Park stood at the front of the room. She looked small compared to many of the aliens present, but her voice was strong and clear. Honored guests. 3 years ago, Overseer Kralvesh told me that humanity had contributed nothing of value to the Empire. He was right. By Imperial standards, we were primitive. Our technology was outdated. We had nothing you needed. Kralvesh felt dozens of eyes turn toward him, his scales flushed with embarrassment. Park continued. So, we decided to find our own path. The Empire has Dyson spheres, magnificent structures that capture energy from stars. We studied them. We learned from them. But we knew we could not build something like that. Not with our limited technology. She gestured toward the massive structure outside the window. So we built something different. We call it a Dyson harness. And it does not just collect energy from a star. It controls the star itself. Misnet. The room went silent. Someone dropped a datapad. The sound echoed like thunder. A Vexatorian scientist stood up. That is impossible. Controlling stellar processes requires technology far beyond anything that exists. Even the Empire cannot do this. Park smiled. You cannot do it. But we can. Because we did not use your methods. We found our own. She activated a holographic display. Complex equations and diagrams filled the air. Most of the observers did not understand them, but the scientists in the room leaned forward, their expressions changing from disbelief to shock to horror. The dying star at the center of this system is collapsing, Park explained. It is a natural process. Eventually, it will become a white dwarf. We discovered that we could manipulate this collapse. Speed it up. Slow it down. Even reverse parts of it. This gives us access to energy levels that dwarf anything a normal Dyson sphere can produce. Grand Admiral Vex Thor stood up. His voice was carefully controlled, but everyone could hear the tension in it. You can control when a star dies? Yes. Show us. Park nodded to her technicians. Outside, the Dyson harness began to glow. The light grew brighter and brighter until it was almost painful to look at. The dying star at the center flickered. Its energy output, which had been weak and fading, suddenly surged. Every instrument in the observation platform went crazy. The power readings climbed higher and higher. Scientists shouted in disbelief. Military officers reached for their weapons. Though, what good that would do, no one knew. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The Dyson harness dimmed. The star returned to its slow dying state. Everything was calm again. But nothing would ever be calm again. Not really. A Kryloth warrior, his massive form trembling with barely controlled rage, stepped forward. This is a weapon. You have built a weapon that can destroy entire solar systems. Park met his gaze without flinching. It can be used as a weapon, yes. With the right adjustments, we could trigger stellar collapse in any system. Or we could prevent natural stellar disasters. The Dyson harness is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or evil. You threaten the entire empire. Another voice shouted. We threaten no one, Park said firmly. We built this to survive. For 40 years, the empire treated us like children. You refused to share technology. You refused to help us advance. You told us to be grateful for what little we had. So we found our own way forward. Kralvesh finally found his voice. How? How did you learn to do this? Your species knows nothing of advanced stellar mechanics. Park turned to look at him directly. You are right, Overseer. We did not know. So we learned. We studied. We experimented. We failed many times. But we did not give up. Because we refused to stay weak forever. She looked around the room at all the shocked faces. You assumed we would follow your path. Use your methods. Copy your technology. But we did not. We found a completely different way. And that is what frightens you. Not that we built something powerful, but that we did it without you. That we did not need you at all. The silence that followed was absolute. Every person in that room understood what had just happened. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. Humanity, the species everyone had dismissed, had just revealed they held the power to destroy worlds, or save them. Grand Admiral Vexthor's face was unreadable. What do you want? Ambassador Park. What we wanted 3 years ago, she said simply. Full species rights. Equal trade access. Technology sharing. A seat on the Imperial Council. We want to be treated as equals, and if we refuse, Park's expression did not change. Then we will continue alone. But the Dyson harness exists. That cannot be unchanged. The question now is whether the Empire adapts to this new reality or tries to fight it. Outside the window, the massive structure hung in space, silent and patient. A monument to human determination. A warning to those who would dismiss them, and a promise that the galaxy would never be the same again. The Imperial Council met in emergency session for the first time in 300 years. The Grand Chamber was full of angry voices, all shouting at once. Nothing like this had happened before. A primitive species had built a weapon that could threaten the entire empire. Kralvesh stood among the crowd, listening to the chaos. His career was destroyed. The human situation was his responsibility, and he had completely failed to see the threat. But that did not matter now. His personal problems were nothing compared to what the Empire faced. We must destroy them immediately, a Draxian general shouted. Before they build more of these weapons. Before they become unstoppable. Others agreed. Military commanders called for immediate action. Some suggested biological weapons. Others wanted to simply destroy all human worlds and be done with it. But Grand Admiral Vexthor remained quiet. He had returned from Project Sanctuary 3 days ago and had barely spoken since. Now he stood at the center of the chamber, his ancient eyes watching the panic around him. Finally, he raised his hand. The chamber slowly fell silent. Attacking humanity now would be suicide, he said. His voice was calm, but it carried throughout the room. We do not know how many Dyson harnesses they have built. We do not know where they are located. If we attack, they could destroy dozens of inhabited systems before we could stop them. So we do nothing? Someone shouted. We let them threaten us? I did not say that. Vex Thor activated a holographic display. It showed human space and the surrounding regions. Captain Thexara has been conducting intelligence operations. She has information we need to hear. Thexara stepped forward. She looked tired. The past 3 days had been the longest of her life. She had barely slept, spending every moment trying to understand what humanity was planning. We have confirmed the existence of 3 additional Dyson harnesses, she reported. All in remote systems, all heavily guarded. But that is not the most important discovery. She changed the display. New images appeared. Humanity has been using energy from the first Dyson harness for the past 6 months. We assumed they were stockpiling power for military purposes. We were wrong. The images showed planets, dead worlds coming back to life, oceans forming, atmospheres stabilizing, green spreading across barren surfaces. They have been terraforming, Thexara continued. Not just human worlds. They have restored 3 alien colonies that were dying. They provided free energy to 6 struggling settlements. They even sent aid to a Kryloth mining operation that was failing due to power shortages. The room erupted again. This made no sense. Why would humanity help others if they planned to conquer the Empire? A council member stood. This could be a trick. Winning goodwill before they attack. Perhaps, Thexara said. But my analysis suggests otherwise. Humanity's military buildup has been minimal. They have added some defensive systems, but nothing offensive. No fleet expansion. No weapon stockpiling. Their actions do not match a species preparing for war. Kralvesh found himself speaking before he thought about it. Then, what do they want? Everyone turned to look at him. He was not supposed to speak. His opinion was worthless now. But the question hung in the air. Thexara looked at him. I think Ambassador Park told us the truth. They want to be equals. They want respect. They built the Dyson harness not to attack us, but to force us to take them seriously. They are threatening us, someone protested. No, Vex Thor said quietly. They are defending themselves. There is a difference. Over the next weeks, the debate continued. But slowly, the Empire began to split into factions. The hardliners wanted war. The pragmatists wanted negotiation. And a growing group of smaller species started speaking up in support of humanity. These species had always been oppressed by the Empire's power structure. The strong species dominated. The weak species obeyed. That was how things worked. But now, humanity had proven that a supposedly weak species could become powerful through innovation and determination. It gave others hope. Then came the incident that changed everything. A group of hardline military officers decided to act without orders. 3 Imperial warships entered human territory and attacked a research station. They believed a quick strike would show humanity that the Empire was not afraid. The human response was immediate and precise. The Dyson harness in the nearest system activated. But it did not destroy the attacking ships. Instead, it sent a focused gravitational pulse that disabled every system on all 3 vessels. Weapons offline. Engines dead. Life support barely functioning. The ships floated helplessly in space, completely neutralized. Human rescue ships arrived within hours. They provided life support and medical aid. They repaired the damaged vessels enough to get them home. And they sent a message with the returning crews. We do not want war, but we will not be victims. This attack was not authorized by your government. We understand that. But if another attack comes, our response will be stronger. We hope for peace, but we are prepared for war. The message was delivered directly to the Imperial Council. The 3 officers who had ordered the attack were arrested immediately, but the damage was done. The failed attack had proven 2 things. First, humanity was not bluffing. They could disable Imperial military assets easily. Second, they had shown restraint when they did not have to. They could have killed everyone on those ships. Instead, they saved them. Public opinion shifted. Across the empire, people began asking questions. Why were they afraid of a species that was helping others? Why should they fight a war that would cost millions of lives? What was wrong with treating humanity as equals? Even Kralvesh found his opinions changing. He had been studying human culture, trying to understand them. What he found surprised him. Humans valued independence above all else. They had a saying, "Don't tread on me." It meant they would not attack others, but they would defend themselves fiercely if threatened. They were not conquerors. They were survivors. The Imperial Council met again. This time, the chamber was quiet. The shouting had stopped. Everyone knew a decision had to be made. Grand Admiral Vexus Thor stood before the assembly. He was old, he was tired, but he was also wise enough to recognize when the galaxy had changed. "I have commanded fleets for 3 centuries," he said. "I have fought wars on 100 worlds. I have seen empires rise and fall. And I have learned one truth above all others. The strong survive by adapting, not by clinging to the past." 7. He looked around at the assembled leaders. Humanity has changed the balance of power. We can accept this and adapt. Or we can fight it and risk everything. I know what my choice is. The vote was called. It was close. Some species voted for war, others for peace. Some abstained, too afraid to choose, but in the end, by a narrow margin, the decision was made. The Empire would negotiate. 1 year later, Ambassador Jin Seo Park walked through the halls of the Imperial Council building. Her footsteps echoed on the ancient stone floors. Statues of great leaders from 1,000 species lined the walls, watching her pass with cold eyes. She was no longer just an ambassador. Today, she would take her seat as the first human member of the Imperial Council. It had been a long road. Difficult negotiations, heated debates, compromises on both sides. But humanity had achieved what they set out to do. They were equals now. Park entered the council chamber. Representatives from dozens of species were already seated. Some nodded to her in respect. Others looked away, still angry about how things had changed, but they all made room for her at the table. That was what mattered. Grand Admiral Vex Thor sat nearby. He looked older now, more tired. The stress of the past year had aged him, but when he saw Park, he gave her a small smile. He had kept his word. He had pushed for peace when others wanted war. She would not forget that. The council session began. There was much to discuss. The Dyson harness technology was being slowly shared with other species, under strict agreements. Safety protocols had to be established. Ethics committees formed, laws written. During a break, Vex Thor approached her. "How does it feel?" he asked. "To have changed the galaxy?" Park considered the question. "Strange. We did not set out to change anything. We just wanted to survive. To be strong enough that no one could dismiss us again. And now everyone is afraid of you instead. Some are. Others see opportunity. The smaller species, especially. They watch us and think, if humanity could do it, maybe we can too. Others mar. Others mar. And an Yugen. Tutu Doc." Vex's Thor nodded slowly. "That is what worries the old powers. Not your strength, but the hope you give others. You showed them that the established order can be challenged. Is that so terrible?" The old admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "No, I do not think it is. Change is necessary." The empire had grown stagnant, too sure of itself. Perhaps we needed someone to shake things up, far away, on a human colony world. Kralvesh stood in the rain and watched workers restore a dead ocean. Huge machines pumped water from underground reserves. Others seeded the water with algae and microorganisms. Within 10 years, this world would be alive again, all powered by energy from a Dyson harness. Kralvesh had been demoted after his failures. He now served as a mid-level administrator on this colony. It was humiliating. He had been an imperial overseer. Now he filed reports and managed supply schedules. But watching the dead world come to life, he found it hard to be bitter. A human engineer approached him, wiping rain from her face. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she had been kind to him, despite his past mistakes. The ocean restoration is ahead of schedule, Administrator Kralvesh. We should have basic marine life established within 6 months. That is good, Kralvesh said. He still struggled with the simple praise. He had spent so long dismissing human achievements. Now he worked for them. Sarah seemed to sense his mood. You look troubled. What is wrong? No. Kralvesh gestured at the machinery, the work crews, the slowly filling ocean basin. Your species changed everything. The empire I knew is gone. Nothing will ever be the same. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My grandmother told me something once. She said that the only constant in the universe is change. Everything transforms eventually. Stars die. New ones are born. Galaxies collide and create something new. Fighting change is like fighting the tide. You will only exhaust yourself. So, we should just accept it? We should adapt to it, learn from it, grow with it. She smiled. The empire survived for 50,000 years. That is amazing, but maybe it survived so long because it could change when it needed to. Maybe this is just another transformation. End quote. Believer. End quote. Kralvesh thought about that. For 50,000 years, the empire had dominated through superior technology and military might. Species joined because they had no choice. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. But humanity had proven that strength could come from unexpected places. Innovation mattered more than ancient technology. Determination mattered more than size. And the willingness to find new paths mattered more than following old ones. Perhaps you are right, he said finally. Perhaps change is not always bad. Sarah grinned. That is the spirit. Come on. I will show you the fish hatchery. We are growing species from 12 different worlds. It will be the most diverse ecosystem ever created. As they walked together through the rain, Kralvesh realized something. He had spent his whole life looking down on species he considered inferior. But in the end, those species had lessons to teach. If he had been willing to listen, to learn, to see them as equals, maybe things would have been different. Maybe he would have recognized humanity's potential before it was too late. In the depths of space, at the edge of human territory, a new transmission began broadcasting. It went out in all directions, carried by powerful transmitters attached to relay stations. The message was simple but profound, to any species listening. To anyone struggling alone in the darkness. Know this. You do not need to follow anyone else's path. The galaxy is vast and full of possibilities. What works for one species might not work for you. Do not be afraid to find your own way. Do not let others tell you what you can or cannot achieve. We are humanity. We were dismissed as primitive. We proved them wrong. You can too. The message repeated endlessly, day after day, month after month. And slowly, across the galaxy, others began to listen. A small aquatic species on the edge of the empire heard the message. They had struggled for generations with technology designed for land dwellers. Now they began experimenting with their own methods, designed for their unique needs. A silicon-based species that barely registered on imperial sensors heard the message. They had been ignored for centuries. Now they started developing their own science, their own technology, based on their unique biology. Others followed. Some succeeded, some failed, but all of them tried. And the empire, the great, unchanging empire, found itself changing whether it wanted to or not. Species that had been silent for thousands of years began speaking up. New ideas emerged. Old certainties were questioned. It was chaotic. It was uncomfortable, but it was alive. Ambassador Park sat in her office late one night, reviewing reports. The work was endless. Building a new galactic order was harder than she had imagined, but it was worth it. A message appeared on her screen. It was from a small species she had never heard of before. They thanked humanity for the inspiration. They had just completed their first successful deep space vessel, designed using principles completely different from Imperial standard models. Park smiled and filed the message with hundreds of others like it. Humanity had not set out to start a revolution. They had just wanted to survive. But sometimes, survival meant changing everything around you. Outside her window, stars filled the darkness. Each one was a sun. Each one might have planets. Each planet might have life. And each life form had the potential to surprise the galaxy. She thought about Overseer Kralovesh, who had told her humanity had nothing to contribute. She wondered if he understood now. Contribution did not mean doing things the way others expected. Sometimes, the greatest contribution was showing people a new path. The galaxy was vast. There was room for many paths, and humanity had just proven that even the smallest species could shake the foundations of empire if they were determined enough, creative enough, and brave enough to try. The monster they had built was not a weapon. It was hope. And that was far more dangerous to the old order than any weapon could ever be.